I think it's working. Hi everyone, happy Friday. We made it to the end of yet another week. Next week is Thanksgiving, believe it or not. And so with that in mind, this is day 4 of gratitude. And I also want to talk about experience. So first thing would be gratitude. Let's talk about what I'm thankful for today. What are you thankful for? I am thankful I've talked about working from home. I've talked about doing school from home. And I've talked about scouting, the scouting movement, all it's done for my kids. I'm thankful for my family, and I think that's what I'm going to talk about today. I am the oldest of 8 children. I have 5 children of my own and 3 grandchildren so far. And they're all precious to me. I'm so thankful to come from such a large and diverse background. I kind of chuckle. I've been, as the certain things get discussed, I kind of chuckle that 2 of my nephews are black. 2 of my nephews and one of my nieces are a quarter Brazilian and a quarter Japanese. 2 of my kids are half Mexican. There's kind of a lot going on in this family. We really love and appreciate those kids. They seem to get the best of both parents when that happens. So it's just wonderful. I have my kids are some of the best behaved kids ever. And that's not just coming from me, by the way. They are kind and loving, and I've had people tell me, they can just tell by looking at them, they're kind, loving people. Jared is the kind of person that will get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to church, to put on his suit, to put on his white shirt and tie, and to go and serve. And that's just something I'm incredibly thankful for. And that's, by the way, without me yelling at him. Mercedes is a very hard worker, and she loves to dance. She loves to work hard. Both of them have loved scouting, and they're both very driven. Jared once has laughed and said all of his life, ever since the first Iron Man movie came out, that he wants to be Iron Man. And of course, I 100% support him on that. If he wants to build Jarvis and build an Iron Man suit, then that's exactly what I want him to do. And Mercedes says she wants to become a trauma surgeon, and so I really work hard to keep this goal of her walking across the stage and receiving a white lab coat with her name followed by the initials MD after it. I'm just really excited that even if she tries and fails, she will get so far than if she doesn't try at all. And I'm so, so proud of her. About my siblings, actually I really love all of my siblings. My sister Debbie and I are probably the closest because we are the closest in age. And every time I talk to her, I am really floored. The things that she remembers that I mostly remember, things that have happened, and we are the only 2 that are old enough, because she's only 18 months younger than I am. We're the only 2 that are really old enough to remember a lot of these things. Some of the things we talk about would be wonderful to talk to the others about, but they just weren't born yet. So it's always fun to talk to her, and her heavy Kentucky accent, it's hilarious. It's like talking to my grandparents. Let's see, Diana has chosen to create a different life somewhere else. I don't get a chance to talk to her very much, but I do think of her a lot. David is currently serving in the U.S. Army. With he is stateside at the moment, but he has already been to both Iraq and Afghanistan. He's carrying forward a tradition in our family of, and so is Daniel, of heroism. We don't have boys in our family. We seem to have heroes. My dad served 42 years in the military. The first 4 of that were in the Air Force as an enlisted man, and then when he joined the Army and became an officer, as he came to the end of his career, I think one of the generals didn't realize that he was at 42 years, not 38 years, and you were required to retire after 40. So he did get an extra couple of years in, and his full bird colonel, which is a huge thing. He is a reservist, or was a reservist, and so he was able to do some things that reservists just don't get an opportunity to do. For example, he was one of just a handful that went to the General Command and Staff College at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. Reservists typically are not asked to go because they want to put that training towards their active duty officers. But my dad was one that went. He also served 2 tours in Kosovo. He's also been to Japan, and I have some lovely chopsticks from him from Japan that I use all the time. And he's been to Egypt, and he's been, I don't even know everywhere he's been everywhere. And it's just wonderful to see. I still have the tickle, I'm so sorry. It's just wonderful to see, you know, how his example has done such wonderful things for my brother, who is now a captain, and kind of took the same route my dad did, in that he first joined as an enlisted man. He actually served at least 1 tour as an enlisted man, and then he, I'm going to put this on my own timeline as well. He served as an enlisted man, and then he finished college and went to officer candidate school. So he's kind of done some things that very much the same track that my dad took, except that my dad really, really, really hated the Air Force. And to this day, we joke that you don't sneak up on Dad when he's asleep because of a lot of the training that he went through. He jerks awake very quickly and is immediately in a combat mode. So we, it's not that we tiptoe around him, but we make a lot of noise when we're going in to wake him up, because if you wake him up gradually, he's fine. If you scare him, he goes kind of straight to his military training. So, I'm going to kind of go down the list. Daniel is a firefighter, and he's the other hero in the family. Again, we kind of breed them. My mother's uncles, one of them was a tail gunner in the Pacific. He's still living, and he's probably smaller than me, so you can kind of see how he would fit into the tail gunner section. And another one of her uncles served and saw some horrible things in World War II in Europe, and will not talk about them. So we have some really wonderful traditions. In fact, our last name is Harris, and the family motto for Harris is forever in the service of our country. So, Daniel, love you too. Then we've got Denise. Denise is one of the few women that I know that is a mechanic and enjoys it. And she's got 3 little kids. And then Dina is kind of the earth mother of the family. She's got 2 lovely kids. She homeschools too, so it's not just me. And then Danielle is a translator for the deaf in Washington, D.C., and she's doing great things. So I'm looking forward to getting to go out there to see her before too much longer. So, you know, those are my siblings, and then we've got my dad, Colonel Harris, and my mom, the General. And I am very blessed that I look like my mother. She's still a very beautiful woman, well into her 70s. I won't say well into her 70s, but I have a lovely picture of her at 68 going parasailing, and I keep laughing, going, that's the kind of thing I want to do when I'm retired. I want to go parasailing, and I want to go skydiving, and I want to go on zip lines, and I don't want to be one of those people that lives on their life until they're 30 and then they just kind of remember everything. My parents have always been kind of goers and doers, and it's great to still see them. They still drive cross country, they still take wonderful vacations, they're still working on their house. My dad does not seem to realize that he's getting old, and so one of the jokes I've kind of made is my mom has actually had to call I guess it was Home Depot or Sam's Club or something, and tell them, you need to help Mr. Harris load all of this tile into the van because he really is old. And he will try to do it, and so don't let him. It's wonderful to see them aging so well, and it's definitely my hope to be still active and sharp well into my retirement years, which are a long way away. So those are some of the things I'm thankful for. I have, again, 7 siblings, 2 sisters-in-law, 3 brothers-in-law, and 16 nieces and nephews that I know of. So, unless I've forgotten somebody. So it's great to come from such a big family, and it's great to come from such wonderful traditions. One of the things that I grew up with was this idea of being Southern. Our family is from Kentucky, and not only are we from Kentucky, we've been from Kentucky for hundreds of years. Judging from some of the tombstones and the genealogy that I've seen, our ancestor that we're aware of that moved into Western Kentucky kind of founded the Harris family there. He was one of the first settlers in McCracken County, and probably one of the first. He was there before Kentucky even became a state. So it's great to know of these traditions. Some of the other traditions that I am aware of, I do have ancestors that came over on the Mayflower. I have ancestors that settled in Jamestown, and I'm very thankful for that, for knowing that. I mean, I don't really know who they were. Haven't delved that deeply yet. I have I'm actually a cousin to Winston Churchill, distantly, very distantly, but still, it's kind of neat to go, this is the kind of people that we are. So, kind of the subject of my show today is this idea, by the way. I've talked a little bit about my dad and his experiences, and one of the things I do know about him is that he never has the same experience twice. It's always different. If he goes to Egypt, he's going to have a very different experience, even though it's still military service, than when he goes to Kosovo. And then I've met other people that have been doing the same thing for 20 years, and so you would think that they would have 20 years of experience. What they really have is 1 year of experience 20 times. They really haven't grown. They haven't learned. They haven't studied. They haven't developed themselves as a part of that. So I am huge on study and learning. If you know anything about me at all, anything, you know that I bring bookworm to a whole new level. I have read over 100 books so far this year, as in 2017. Started counting in January. I kept them on a spreadsheet. I'm at 102 so far, and that is not including my textbooks that I'm studying for college. So I like to read a little bit. So, and the reason I like to read is I remember standing in front of the library at BYU, and I probably did this at other colleges as well, but I distinctly remember doing this at BYU, just standing there and going, there's all this knowledge in there, and I don't have time to read all the books, because all the knowledge of the world is in books. One of the things that I really love about, I talked about technology a day or two ago, one of the things I absolutely love about technology is this idea that I can have, and I do have, on this lovely tablet that's about 10 inches wide and 4 inches tall and, what, a 1/4 inch thick? I have about 2,500 books on here and counting. What I don't have is the time to read them all. But it's wonderful that I just grab my tablet, my textbooks are on here, my books for pleasure are on here. I have books on every subject under the sun. I have books about some odd subjects. I read a book once on the history of vibrators. That was really kind of interesting. And everything interests me, by the way. The book I'm reading right now is called Profiles in Audacity, and it profiles Cleopatra and Boudicca. I don't know how you say her name. She was the Celtic queen that led an uprising against the British, against the Romans in Britain, and it's just neat to see and to learn about all this kind of stuff. I read a book called The Aviators by Winston Groom that talked about people like Charles Lindbergh and Eddie Rickenbacker, and who else? Some of the huge names in aviation, and it just was interesting to see how they got into it. And I'm really one of those people. I'm interested in everything. I will go hiking and just sit and watch the sunrise, or watch a plant grow, or watch for mooses. Is it mooses? It's not meese. Watch for the mooses or the elk out. Maybe it's just moose. One moose, two moose. Out where I hike. I'm fascinated by wildlife. I'm fascinated by being out in the outdoors. Love being in the outdoors. I'm fascinated by just about everything that comes my way. Everything interests me, and that's something that I learned from my dad. My mom is the same way. She doesn't show it as much. My mom is one of those people that shows interest in something by being very practical. I remember it just kind of hitting me that she was very kind and loving person, and it hit me because she was preparing dinner for another family again. And that's just how she is. When she sees a need, and she's very loving, she just kind of rolls up her sleeves and gets to work. And so my dad is a little bit more I don't even know what the word is, but he's the one that taught me about insects. He's an entomologist by training, and I remember as a kid, every time I went past his office, which was in our basement, he'd go, "Donna, come in, you've got to look in the microscope and look at this weevil," and I would just be like, "Really, I don't care about weevils." But the fact that he was so enthusiastic about weevils, and about scarab beetles, and about houseflies, and about, by the way, snakes, scorpions, spiders. There's very little that are creepy crawly that bother me. The only real fear I have is heights. There's one other real fear that I have, but I don't ever talk about that one. So, I'm not afraid of snakes. I respect them. And I will look carefully to see if they're venomous or not. If they're venomous, I have a very healthy respect for them, and I want them as far away from me as possible because I know what they can do. If they are not venomous, I still don't like to play with them, and it has nothing to do with not liking the way they feel, but I do know what they can do. And they are wild animals, and I have a very healthy respect for them. Same thing with lizards. I have no problems with lizards. I have picked them up and played with them. Looked at them, kind of petted them. I'm not a fan of spiders, or especially not tarantulas. I really can't stand black widows, but again, it's not a matter of being afraid of them. It's a matter of, I know what they do. And I can look at them and recognize that I don't like them, but without being afraid of them. So I'm one of the rare girls that is not afraid of bugs. And at one point, I could explain the difference between various species of beetles because my dad explained all this to me. But because he was so excited and enthusiastic, and he was a huge reader also, mostly Louis L'Amour Westerns, I learned myself to be a huge reader. In fact, I was reading fluently by the time I was 3. So that's one of the things I learned from my dad, was just soak it all in, soak in all of this knowledge. There's so much of it out there, and it's growing all the time, and I just don't have enough time to read all the books. But then there's people that just don't care to learn. And oddly enough, I run into them all the time. It's always kind of interesting. I know someone who he does sales and marketing for a living and brags that he's never been in a marketing class. And I'm just like, but there's people that may know things out there that you don't know. And so what it comes down to is I can do sales and marketing because I have to study it for my degree, and I read books on it, and I read web pages on it, and I study it, and it's really not that hard to do, but I'm always looking for better ways. So one of the things I just learned in my business class is the difference between absolute advantage and comparative advantage. And there are people that I know that are really good at sales and marketing, but I am also good at sales and marketing. So they only have a comparative advantage over me in sales and marketing, in that it's actually better for me to have someone do that part of my business for me because I'm the one that does the back end work. I'm the accountant. However, I have an absolute advantage over them over the whole business because I can run the whole business. I do know how to manage people. I do know how to do sales and marketing, and I do know how to do accounting and bookkeeping. And the reason I know how to do all that is because, number one, I've made all the mistakes. If there's a mistake that can be made at the bookkeeping level, I believe, trust me, I have made it. And I'm not likely to continue to make it because I take those mistakes. When a client says, I don't like the way you're doing this, I take that and I go back and I go, well, what's the right way to do it? Am I not doing it the right way? I need to study this. And I figure out how to do that better. And then, someone else will say, well, but I want my chart of accounts to look like that. And I go, let me study chart of accounts a little bit more. Of course, now remember, at this point, I don't have a degree. So I go back and I look at charts of accounts. And then I feel like I'm able to go back and go, okay, the reason I have it set up this way is this. And the other thing that I've really learned is Simon Sinek talks about starting with why. And he talks about that, about your passions. Why do you do what you do? Start with the why. Do you get out and you work for your kids? Do you get out and work because you love your job? But I really like to explain to my clients why. Why can I not just write everything off to perquisites, to perks, and not take a salary when I have an S Corp? Well, because the IRS will come after you and they will take everything you have. But if you want that to happen, this is not just me telling you, it's because there are taxation reasons for you not to do that. There are legal reasons for you not to do that. Let me explain what they are. Or, why are you putting these copies that I need at FedEx under printing instead of advertising because they're flyers? And I go, well, because they're printed. It's printed. Whether or not you use it for advertising, we need to know what you're spending on printing. Advertising is for television, radio, Facebook ads, Google ads. But if you're printing, even if you're printing marketing materials, it's still printing. And I expect that if you're printing, it's probably marketing materials. Same thing. I have stacks of postcards back here that I will be mailing the week after Thanksgiving. And I put the cost for the postcards under printing and the cost for the postage under postage, even though it really is a marketing campaign. What would I put under advertising and promotions? Well, referral programs, Facebook ads, anything along those lines. If I were to take out a newspaper or print ad or a newspaper or print or TV, radio, anything like that, that is advertising. That is printing. So, and I usually do try to explain all of this in an intelligent way, hopefully, to my clients and tailor that to what they need to know. And like I said, sometimes I'm wrong. Again, I don't have a degree. I haven't taken the classes. I don't have all of the knowledge, which is why I'm currently in college to obtain my degree. It's not so much that I want the letters behind my name, although that will be very nice. It is because I want to know better. I've talked about being competitive before, and again, I'm not competitive in the I just have to be better than you, so I'm going to push you down sort of a way. It's I have to be better than you. I want to be better than you because it makes me a better person. And so I want you to bring your very, very best game. And then I want to get a little bit better. And when you get better, I want to get even better than that. And it may happen that I can't get better than you, but it will be because I maxed out, not because I kneecapped you. And I think I've shared this with a couple of people that said that what that does is it just helps me be a better person. And hopefully it helps the person that I'm competing with also be a better person. So, so I'm really thankful for learning. So I was talking about, do you have 20 years experience, or do you have the same year of experience 20 times? And that's where learning really comes into play. A lot of people will absolutely refuse to change. They fight change. They hate change. They don't want to change anything about anything. I actually have clients that still want to do their bookkeeping in a ledger book or a spreadsheet, and they don't want me to do anything better. And I'm just like, I have better solutions for you, and they don't want me to change anything. They want me to do it exactly the way they have always done it. So they're one of the ones that have 1 year of experience over 20, 30, 40 years. They have the same experience. They're not learning. They're not growing. They're not changing anything. And maybe there's a few things that maybe they just go, I'm all changed out. But that's almost never the case. They're just, they tend to be stubborn and don't want to change. That happens a lot, by the way, with the bookkeepers that I have worked with. They get very stuck on this idea of, well, Donna just thinks she knows better than we do, but then I would meet with them and they would not have anything thoughtful or intelligent to say back to me. One of the ones that really kind of caught my eye, was one that's going through the same program at the same school that I am. And there is an accounting equation, okay? And I'm going to write it on here just for, you know, I'll even use a pretty color. So the accounting equation is assets minus liabilities. Actually, that's the way I ended up saying it to you. Okay, I hope you can read that. Assets equals liabilities plus equity. This is what you see on the balance sheet, right? And I started explaining it to her this way. Assets equals minus liabilities equals equity. So you can see it says almost the same thing. Instead of assets is equal to liabilities plus equity, all I did is subtract liabilities from both sides of the equation because I'm a mathematician and I can do that. And, or at least I know algebra. And she said, this one's wrong. And I said, no, it's not. This is correct. She said, well, that's not how I was taught. And I said, well, this is correct. This is just as correct as this. And she said, well, that's not how I was taught. And I was like, but this is still correct. And she absolutely would not listen to me and then started to complain that I was just acting like a know-it-all. I was her trainer. I was supposed to act like a know-it-all. And I was one of the founders. So I was like, this is correct. This is just as correct as this. This and this mean the same thing. If I were to change it so that I could change it even more, I could change it to say, assets minus equity equals liabilities. I could make it to say that, and it's still right. And she argued with me about it, which just floored me because, one, I had been in this business for a long time, and I study what I do all the time. And she had been she'd been a hairdresser. And so she's arguing with me about this, and I'm going, but this is right. I would never actually use this equation on the bottom because that's a weird way of, usually we know our assets and our liabilities and we can figure out the equity. So it makes more sense to say assets minus liabilities is equal to equity because assets and liabilities are usually things that we know. We don't always know the equity. Equity mostly is on paper, may not be money in the bank. And so I just remember her being so mad at me and saying, well, that's just not how I was taught. And I thought, then you need to expand on your knowledge because while what you're saying is not necessarily wrong, neither is what I'm saying. She was someone who had had the same year or day or class of experience, and that's all she knew. So as a business owner, one of the things that I'm looking for is someone who really has experience. And I don't mean, I once took a class on accounting, and so that is all I know, and I will not let you teach me anything else. That's not what I want. I don't even want someone who comes in, in fact, if I were to have, I don't have a degree right now. Remember that, working on the degree. You'll know when I get the degree because we will have balloons and confetti and all kinds of stuff going on in the background. I will be so excited, and I don't expect it to take long. But no, I don't have a degree. But if I am the one doing the hiring, if I'm even in on the hiring decision, then I expect that even if someone comes in with who has a CPA and is an EA and has an MBA and maybe even has a doctorate in business administration, I expect them to kind of defer to me. And if they want to tell me how to do something different, I'm wide open to it. But I want them to sit me down and go, this is an idea I have. And if I say, you know, I've tried that and it didn't work, then they might say, well, did you try it this way? Instead of just going, well, you're just wrong. That doesn't do it. That really made me dislike this girl. And I was kind of relieved when she left. And also, if you're a new hire at somewhere, I think it's important to be mindful of the relationships that already exist. Just a thought. If you're new somewhere and you're working with someone who's been there for years, it's usually best to defer to them. Even if you think that you know more than they do, you don't know what they know. You have no idea what they know. So I'm just kind of going to leave it with there. The idea is to make sure that you actually have years of experience, if you have years of experience, and not just the same experience repeated over and over. I really try to be someone who has a lot of experience, as in a breadth and depth of experience and knowledge and reading and study and everything that goes along with that. I'm constantly trying to learn. I'm constantly learning about communication and about my field. And I'm just huge on continuing education. Not just doing the same thing over and over, but how do I do this better? What am I doing wrong? That's one of the things I will always ask is, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing well? And how can I improve? Those are the things that I always want to know, because if someone says, I think you're doing this wrong, then the next thing I want to know is, well, then how do I improve? What is the problem? It's a communication problem. Well, is it in you receiving it, or is it in the way I'm explaining it? And could it be that I was just tired that day? Or could it be that I was sick that day? Or could it be that you've asked me that question 50 times and I feel like you should know it by now and I was a little bit frustrated? Or could it be that, you know, I want to know all of the ins and outs? I was told once that I create a lot of drama, and I do not believe that to be true. In fact, I found out later that it wasn't. So, you know, I'm just one of those people that I want facts and figures and spreadsheet and PowerPoint presentations, and explain to me what went wrong and how I can improve, because if I don't improve, there's no point in even telling me that I did something wrong. and I am wide open to improvement. I feel like that is the whole purpose of my life, is to learn and to learn more and to be better and to do better and to practice more and to just be a better at everything I do, to be the best. So I'm going to call it good for tonight. You guys have a wonderful evening. I don't know if I will be on tomorrow. I'm kind of leaning towards not, because it's Saturday and I'm not feeling that great. So have a wonderful weekend. Next week is Thanksgiving week. I will be on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I don't know about Thursday. I might be. And I will be on Fridays. So have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful weekend. And I will talk to you the week of Thanksgiving.